Okay, so safe foods, back up here. Safe foods is a buzzword, and it's used a lot when we're talking about pediatric nutrition, selective eating, helping kids get more variety. There should be a safe food on your plate. Like, all those things are all over Instagram, the internet, blogs. So we're gonna talk about it here. What is a safe food? How do I use safe foods? What if that's the only thing they eat? I'm gonna answer these questions and more in this video. So first, I'd like you to make a list of the foods that your child is learning, accepts, and enjoys. So learning means like food that they don't like, but I like to use the term learning foods better. Accepts is like, they're just like neutral, and enjoys is the foods they really like. So your learning foods, your accepts foods, and your enjoys foods. Especially include on this list the foods that you serve regularly, so, or would like to serve regularly, or the foods that are also culturally important to you. Keep in mind that this list may be constantly fluctuating, so you may need to adjust it regularly, but this is like, if you do any written homework for this course, this is the thing to write down, so don't skip it. A learning list, an accepts list, and an enjoys list. Pause the video, or the podcast, or however you're listening to this, and write this down. Seriously, this is important. But remember, it's completely normal if foods are like regularly moving in and out of each category. So just for right now, make the list for where your child is at right now. The goal of this course is to help your child move lots of foods to the enjoys and also the accepts categories from the learning categories. So what is a safe food? A safe food is one that falls into either the accepts or enjoys category, one that your child will confidently eat without anxiety, one they feel safe eating, one they will reliably eat. For selective or picky eaters, I recommend having at least one safe food at every meal and snack. You may need to play with how your child responds here. If your child is a bit more adventurous or has low mealtime anxiety, they might do fine with an accepts food as a safe food, or even if no safe foods are on their plate. If your child has high mealtime anxiety, you might need to select an enjoys food as their safe food, one that they're really comfortable with, like one of their comfort foods. For some children who are more adventurous, they can accept a plate with no safe foods, but this is not something I recommend for kids who are struggling with variety. And your child's ability to do this might vary depending on the day, their emotional state, if they're sick or not, if they're tired. It's really a moving target, so there's no like one right way to do this. Keep in mind, a safe food can be something as simple as ketchup or the tortilla that the burrito is wrapped in. It can be a side of berries or some shredded cheese on the side that's also mixed into this new soup you made. So I have two very important things I want to mention in this concept of safe foods. Number one, I use the term safe here, safe, because I'm doing quotes here, because it's a standard term among pediatric dietitians and feeding professionals. However, just like the term clean eating implies that some foods are dirty, or using good foods implies that some are bad, the term safe food also implies that some foods are dangerous. And this is not a mentality we want to bestow onto our kids. So if you prefer, you can also use the term familiar food. That's what I like. But if you choose to continue using the term safe food, I recommend not using this term around your kids. This is only a parent term and a parent concept that will help you plan their plates and one we're discussing in this video, because this course is for parents to watch. So number two, while I recommend including a safe food on the plate, there is no research that directly says we should do so or that it helps. There's lots of consensus for doing so in the pediatric feeding experts communities, but there is no research article that suggests that kids are more likely to eat a variety of foods at a mealtime if there's a safe food on their plate. Remember, I haven't discussed evidence tiers in this course, but there's a variety of tiers of evidence. So the highest and most rigorous type of evidence we can have is like a standardized controlled clinical trial published in scientific peer-reviewed journal. There is none of that with safe foods, but we do have expert opinions suggesting that they're really helpful. That's still evidence, but it's not at the same level as like a research article. So because there's this is also an interesting detail, because there's no research consensus on the details behind safe foods, there's also not one standardized definition. So what I'm saying it is a safe food here, it might not be a safe food on somebody else's Instagram account, like the definition of it. But simply from observation in these and in my also in my experts' clinical practices, we see that a safe food gets a child started with the eating process, and they're then more likely to explore the other foods on their plates. We also see that a safe food reduces mealtime anxiety at mealtimes, which can certainly affect a child's willingness to eat. But again, I want to be transparent here because I talk about the research basis so much of my content. So in summary so far, safe foods are foods that your child accepts or enjoys. Safe foods are foods that your child will reliably consume. So for most kids, they should be included on the plate at every meal and snack, but doesn't apply for all kids. We want to keep a familiar food on the plate because doing this can help a child feel more comfortable around new foods. Think of it like a safety blanket, or going to the party alone versus with a friend. Many people feel much more comfortable meeting new people if they have someone familiar with them. The same thing goes with your child meeting new foods. If there's one they're comfortable with on their plate, they're going to be more likely to try ones that they might not have experienced before. Now, remember that the division of responsibility states that the child should be allowed to choose how much of a food they want to eat. This means that a child should be permitted to ask for more of a certain food until it's gone, or until the rest has to be saved for other family members. So what do you do if your child only eats the familiar or the safe food? Here, I recommend being consistent with serving a safe food on their plate. Even if you think that they're only going to eat that, it can take time for your child to feel comfortable trying new foods. And maybe your child is tired, maybe they're getting sick, maybe they're emotionally overwhelmed from something that happened in their day, and they just want to lean into what's comfortable to them. That is certainly a possibility too. Vary your child's safe foods as much as possible. So if your child has a number of different safe foods, don't just serve bread on their plate every night. If they have other safe foods, like give some variety there. Also, maybe bread is your child's only safe food. Well, let's give the variety to the bread as much as possible. Toast it. Don't toast it. Put butter on it. Put olive oil on it. Spread some garlic on it. Give it as much variety as possible. Use novelty tools. Add spices or different flavor. However you can, use dips to modify slightly. Offer different safe foods if possible, even if it doesn't go with meal, because meals don't have to go. So look at the variety video that I have in this course for some ideas on how to modify without really changing the taste. So I've got some ideas in there. First, to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this course, it's very important to ensure that there are no medical issues contributing to your child's selective eating. Some medical conditions like dysphagia or eosinophilic esophagitis can contribute to discomfort while eating, which can lead to a child only eating safe foods in an effort to prevent pain or discomfort. So don't just serve the same safe food in the exact same way at every meal. This is a necessity to your child. If having a safe food, the same safe food in the same way at every meal is necessary for your child to eat, your child is likely going to benefit from feeding therapy and working one-on-one with a professional, so keep that in mind. All right, other tips here. Use novelty and fun for the other foods on the plate too, not just the safe foods. Reduce the serving size of the learning foods, so the ones that they might not like. Keep it small to make them appear less overwhelming. So instead of serving them like a whole side of peas, like filling up that pre-portioned side of the plate, give them like 2 peas. Examine your schedule. Is constant snacking preventing your child from being hungry at meal times? If they're snacking all the time, then they're not going to be super hungry before meal times, and hunger is a big motivator to eat. So if they're not super hungry, they may be like, meh, I'm just going to eat what's comfortable. But if they're really hungry, they might, be more adventurous around what's on their plate. Examine the eating environment and the mindset. Is there another way that you can help your child feel more at ease when they come to the table at meal times? I'm sure that many of you relate. I know that I can, that turning to comfort foods during times of anxiety is a completely normal human behavior. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with your kid or something wrong with their eating behaviors. So a question, now we're gonna go through some questions that I get about safe foods. So is it okay if your child's safe food is not very nutrient dense? Totally. The goal of safe foods is not to pack your child's diet with nutrients. It's to make them feel comfortable at the table and help them to get started in the process of eating. Now, what if they ignore all the other food you put on their plate? So if your child's a selective eater, for sure keep offering the safe foods. Make sure you're varying how the safe food is presented, like I discussed in the variety and novelty videos. So watch those. Vary which safe foods you offer. Remember, they don't have to go. And trial offering a less familiar but still familiar food on the plate as a safe food. Apply your food play and novelty strategies to the other foods on your child's plate to make those fun and exciting. If you serve chips and an apple for a snack, chips being the safe food, don't just serve the plain apple. That's probably gonna seem boring to your kid, but if you serve apple slices with like a fun dip and make them apple nachos, or let your kids add some sprinkles to their apple slices, or let them use shape cutters on thin apple slices, they're probably gonna dig into the less familiar food, the apple, too. If your child's improving in their adventurous eating abilities, trial a meal or snack without a safe food and see how it goes. Now, what if their safe foods are constantly changing? That's normal. I don't have the super great advice for you here. You just gotta do your best to predict what is their safe food and stick to your responsive feeding and division of responsibility principles once a meal is served. So you decide what's gonna be served, and if your child all of a sudden decides that none of those foods are safe, well, that's what is served, and we're not gonna be pulling other foods out of the pantry. Finally, if your child does try a new food, don't forget and overreact. We wanna reinforce the idea that all food is equal. So a calm, hey, I saw you tried peas. You were very adventurous at dinner tonight. Or, I saw you tried peas, how'd they make you feel? That's a great way to respond. If we overreact, we can in some ways coerce our children to eat a certain way just to get that reaction out of us. So overreacting or excessive praise is not considered a low pressure parenting style at mealtimes. So ask your child how that food makes them feel at dinner and even after the fact. Did it make them feel strong, fast at soccer practice, full, hungry for more? Did it taste salty or smell like another food they know? By discussing the new food, we're not only practicing the food language piece, but we're also encouraging the child to remain in tune with their body's feelings after eating a certain food. So important, remember that we're still wanting to stick to the division of responsibility framework, and we want to continue to encourage our kiddos to listen to their body's hunger and fullness cues. It's okay if they don't eat these new foods. But it's important to continue serving them to give them a chance to surprise you and continue to grow their intuitive eating skills. So refer back to my discussion of what causes picky eating and when to seek help if you're concerned. And homework here for this video is to make your list of foods that your child is learning, accepts, or enjoys. Always have a familiar food on their plate. Try adding foods to their plate that are in the working on and accepts category. Then try mixing an enjoys food with a working on food. Keep a running list and watch foods move through these different categories as you progress through the course.